What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and typically I'm critically analyzing apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. But today we're not taking a look at apologist claims, but we are interviewing Kevin Bowling from the Secular Student Alliance. And I wanted to bring Kevin on because I've interacted with y'all stuff a lot on the social media and everything, and I love everything that y'all are doing with the organization. And I haven't had y'all on for like an interview to sort of, I guess, introduce y'all to my audience. I know with me being an engineer, I feel like I probably garner a lot of STEM type people. And so I really wanted people to know about the Secular Student Alliance, what kind of organization they are, why they might want to join up if there is an SSA at their respective campuses. And so I'm just kind of I'll just start off if you want to introduce yourself, like what position you hold at SSA, and then also kind of give us an introduction to the Secular Student Alliance.
Sure, happy to, and glad to be here. And glad that we, able to do this. Again, Kevin Bowling, and I'm the executive director at the Secular Student Alliance. And I've been with the organization for about 8 years now. So we have our professional staff. Our national office is actually in Los Angeles, but sort of the heart of what we do, the core of what we do, is our student chapters. And so we have student chapters mostly in high schools, or sorry, college and universities, but also we've always had and continue to have in high schools. We've started branching into junior highs, middle schools through a partnership with TST, elementary schools. We're trying to get more involved into the secular homeschooling. So anywhere there are students, we want to make sure that we're there, assisting them, providing community, helping them build their identity, and really take part in their activism. So we currently have, we're on summer break right now, which is a little bit of downtime for us. But our summer conference is actually next week, right around the corner. So we bring student leaders from all across the country. In this year, we're going to be at the University of Cincinnati. So that changes every year, but it's really grassroots organizing, leadership development, a chance for them to really learn more about how to build their communities on campus. Lots of people from the secular movement sort of sharing and talking with them, building those relationships. During the school year, it's really the heart of what we do is supporting the students that are doing chapters at their college universities, and from providing a place for students to meet on campus, sort of building that community. For a lot of people, it's like, oh, I didn't realize there were people like me who thought like this. Lots of other non-religious students on campus, even though almost 50% of today's youth don't identify with a particular religion. So it's really a place for them to come together. And then we really look at, okay, great, you're non-religious. Now what? So letting them do programs on their campus to help normalize, non-religion, doing service projects, making a difference in their community, and really sort of living out their activism. And they're interested in lots of different things. So our staff is here to support them and whatever they're sort of interested in.
That's awesome. And yeah, I wish that I had known about the Secular Student Alliance back when I was in college, which that was like, from 2003 to 2012. When the Secular Student Alliance form?
The organization was founded in 2000, and it was actually
Okay.
primarily a group of students at Ohio State University who already had a sort of secular, non-religious student group going, who several of those members were also involved in the larger secular movement, but really wanted an organization solely focused on students and youth. So that'll help, and obviously we're able to get that started. So the national office was located in Columbus, Ohio for a number of years, and for the past 8 years has been in Los Angeles.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I wish that I had known about the Secular Student Alliance. I mean, I didn't deconvert from Christianity until I was nearly done with my bachelor's, but I think that it would be a fabulous resource. Being in North Alabama, like there's a very prominent on the UAH campus. Uh, there's a very prominent building specifically for the religious students out there. And so it was, that never struck me as being odd, kind of, I guess, in that way. I always considered, religious, I guess, religious groups in general around here is very standard, I guess.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we hear all the time from people, "Oh, I wish there had been this when I was in college." And so our part is you can help make it so that students don't have to say that anymore. But yeah, we'll often find on college campuses you have the Newman Center and the Episcopal Center and the Jewish Center and like all the a variety of different major religions have buildings and staff at primarily major college universities throughout the country. And in some schools, there may be 120 religious student organizations. And there's typically just one sort of secular student alliance or non-religious group. So we really feel what we're doing is important. And as sort of I mentioned before, you know, almost 50% of young people nowadays don't identify with a particular religion. And so the nuns, there's a wide variety in there. But if you look, about 25-ish% are atheist and agnostic, and we see that number increasing. There's definitely a need for it. Most college universities aren't providing any services, and it's not sort of in their ethos of, or they're even thinking to be able to do that. So we just want to, again, make sure that we're there to support those students, provide them with lots of free resources, provide them with leadership development. And we really look at where we're helping form leaders who are going to be in our society or within the secular movement who are going to have those strong secular values and that definite appreciation moving forward.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was just thinking that I was watching your talk at the American Atheist Conference earlier today, and back in 2019, and you mentioned that there was actually the first SSA chapter at a middle school. Is that still going strong, or what's going on with the middle school chapters?
Sure. So right now we don't have any chapters at middle schools. So like
Mm.
most things in our society, but especially things in education through COVID, a lot of our chapters continued the first couple years through COVID virtually, and then that move back to campus was sort of a big hurdle. And everything in education was like that. So we're sort of riding the sort of the same wave that everyone else is. So we're being very intentional in rebuilding those chapters, but we do continue to see lots of interest. I think the last sort of month of the spring semester, we saw a lot of interest from high school students who are reaching out and wanting to start chapters. So we continue to see little waves. We'll be a little bit quiet during the summer, but in the fall, we actually have a huge outreach program where we will be um, emailing like the entire campus. So University of Alabama, emailing every single student on campus. And so it's educational about when what will be educating about the growing number of young people who are non-religious and sort of normalizing that non-religion. But also we're obviously increasing an awareness that the organization's here, and we, through doing this sort of right out of COVID, we had a lot of students who reached out and go, "Hey, I'm interested more in learning more about your organization. I'm interested in starting a chapter. Hey, if you have a chapter, I'm interested in joining a chapter." So we'll be doing a huge program, and we're hoping to like directly email about 2 million students, and that'll take us probably just over a month to be able to do that, uh, just do that outreach in general. So we hope a lot of our clearly most of that you ask about middle schools, but most of that outreach will be with college and universities. But when we increase that awareness, we know that more parents are involved and aware, and so then we often find that that trickles down to high schools and even sort of the middle school aspect.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious, how does the SSA support secular students in both high school and college campuses across the country?
Yeah, for all of our students, we a variety of things we do. One is we, obviously assist them, our staff assist them in starting a registered student organization at their school or their college university. And through that, they get lots of supports and resources and funding and facility use from their school, which is fantastic. It's also a way for them to recruit new members, so we help them through that process. We send them a starter kit, so sample constitution, other sort of documents they'll need. We send them publicity so they can promote themselves on campus. Oftentimes they'll be tabling, one of the great ways to recruit and make students aware that they're on campus. We send a ton of free supplies, stickers and buttons and all sorts of brochures, information pamphlets for them to be able to pass out. So they have a very sort of professional look. They've got professionally printed materials. So, lots of things that they can hand out to students. We also send them like business cards and banners and flyers, things to promote themselves around the campus. For students for chapters who want to do, like a bigger program on campus, we do have some funding that they can apply for. So obviously they can also get funding from their campus community. We help them through that process. We do, just as far as their development and resources, we provide them directly. We do a series of monthly meetings during the school year. We do a series of trainings at the beginning of every semester. We have a monthly webinar series that not just for our students, but the larger community participate in. It covers a large variety of topics and subjects and all sorts of information. And then we sort of have three large programs that we do every year. So one of those is our secular spring break. So obviously, as the name, during spring break, we have students come for a week. We've actually, the last 3 years, we've been in Florida. So we do disaster recovery, typically after hurricanes. So we were right outside of Tampa this year after do sort of rebuilding after Hurricane uh, Helene and Milton. So that's a great thing that students can get involved in. We do that every year, and the place does vary. Just with climate change, Florida just keeps happening to get hit by tornado by hurricanes, which probably is not going to end anytime soon, unfortunately. Um, we also have our scholarships, so secular activist scholarships, and that's actually going on right now. And so the applications are still open for that, and they will be through the end of July. So we recognize secular activism, so separation of church and state, freedom of religion, um, you know, uh, and the sort of marrying that with intersectional activism. So some of our students are engaged in LGBT rights or women's reproductive justice or environmental justice or racial justice, helping the homeless, people experiencing homelessness. So we look for those aspects and being able to reward that. And we have a number of partners in the secular community who help sponsor those. And then sort of, as I mentioned before, our sort of crowning program every year is our conference. So we have students from all across the country coming in for sort of a long weekend of training and development and workshops and speakers.
Yeah. What kind of so I've always been a little hesitant about considering going to like the SSA conference just because I'm not a student anymore. I haven't been a student for like 12, 13 years or something like that. And so it's like, oh, hey kids, I feel like I'd be the old guy at the conference, like, hello, fellow youngsters, kind of thing. But what kind of like workshops or what kind of presentations do y'all put on at the conference?
Yeah, so the conference obviously it changes every year, but I will say that from our student members, we typically range from like age 8 to age 80. So there's a wide range of students who come to the conference, but we also encourage people, hey, if you want to hear more about what young people are thinking and talk with young people who are involved in the movement, if you are in a local atheist humanist free thought group and you want more grassroots organizing, building community, those sorts of workshops, that's something that we offer. So we really mirror our conference. We have this sort of the plenary where we sort of have the speakers who are just from the big stage. Everyone's in the room together, and we have a variety of people who will be speaking from that stage. So lots of Sasha Sagan will be speaking this year. Forrest, who I know a lot of the sort of YouTuber community is very familiar with, will be presenting. We have a comedy show, but those are more sort of in general, sort of more sort of educational and sort of speakers and a little bit on the lecture side. But then the majority of our conference is actually breakout workouts, or breakout workshops. And so we have usually three workshops per session. Students get to pick what they want to go to. So it may be on, how to build a stronger community, how to fundraise, how to do events, how to publicize, um, street epistemology. So, we're even this year just with the protests we're happening. We have a protest panel and then a follow up where students can ask more questions. And we actually have an ex FBI agent who will be there and giving advice. We have actually a humanist celebrant who was in the army who's going to be doing a session on how to stop the bleed. So if you do come across a student, another person who's been injured, you can have a little bit of information on how you can help save that person. So there's Forrest will actually be presenting a workshop on communication. Sasha is going to be presenting a session on rituals. So we really look at the people who are speaking are also then going and we say, what would you like to teach? And so there's a wide variety of things. So personal development, organizational development, grassroots organizing, and we even have non-secular groups sort of in the progressive area who are working, whether it's reproductive justice or um, political organizing, voting rights, who also come in and will speak and present as well. So it's a wide variety of things.
Yeah, I was going to say that, being that it's the Secular Student Alliance, secular doesn't have to rule out any particular religious group. It just, you're very focused on non-religious things, but that doesn't mean that you can't be religious and help or take part. What would you say that's correct?
Definitely, and I think that when the organization was found, they intentionally chose the word secular as sort of the broadest and most inclusive word. And so, yes, the majority of our students, church state separation, the freedom of and from religion, are hallmarks to what and non-religion sort of bring all of our students together. But then they have the other things that they're interested in doing and that they're passionate about, that are impacting their lives. And so we obviously want to support both of those, so we can support the non-religion and the LGBT rights. We can support the separation of church and the environmental justice. So we try to include all of that. And we have had their religious speakers come to the conference. So sort of in building coalition and being able to support the freedom of and from religion or church state separation or fight against white Christian nationalism, it's important that we have religious partners. So we have had invited people in to do presentations and to speak to the students about that and how to build coalition with other groups. um, and I will say, even at the chapter level, while our main focus is non-religious students, we do have religious students who join and become members of the chapters who have received scholarships. So in large part at the chapter level, they want to have philosophical discussions about religion, but most of them will say, my religious community is not the safest or most supportive place to have those conversations. And so I think for many people in the second movement, like, you want to have a conversation about religion? Sure, let's have that conversation. So our students tend to be very open to those conversations and inviting the sort of religious members in if they want to have those, in good faith. And for some people, getting involved could be, I'm thinking about leaving or I'm having doubts and I'm not sure if I want to be religious or not. But for other people, they're like, nope, I'm religious, I like my religion, I just want to have these conversations, and this is a safe, easy, informed place I can do that, which is wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of curious, talking about like the chapters and what they do and everything like that. Do you have like any success stories for how an SSA chapter has made a difference on its campus?
Sure. Two recent things sort of come to mind. One is our chapter at the University of Texas San Antonio. So when Roe was taken down by the Supreme Court, they actually were coalition and in coalition with a number of student organizations on their campus and said, "Hey, we have a health center on campus, a student health center on campus, and we want you to guarantee that you're going to continue to provide reproductive health care, birth control, and information for students so that we can be responsible in this." Obviously, Texas did a lot to change their state laws. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition in the support they were looking for. So our students, and again, working with some other student organizations and organizations off campus, they started a little sort of safe sex fair. So information about safe sex, um, about a wide variety of sexual or issues and concerns. So really sort of science-based information for students to make sure they're getting that. And then our students there also worked with another nonprofit and started handing out Plan B on campus for free. So I think last semester they handed out 700 doses of Plan B. So for students who if they you know come into a circumstance that they're not ready to handle or not able to handle, they have some medical options to be able to assist them with that. Since the campus isn't doing that anymore or providing information or assistance, and the Texas as a state is not very helpful, obviously. So they're really sort of taking up and like this is something they were passionate about, and they're really now making that impact on their campus. Another example is happens to be a high school in Texas, Texas Hightower High School near the Houston area. Who, and this is not on campus, but sort of in their community, the regional school board was holding information sessions about LGBT rights, and a number of our students went, high school students went and testified, for in support of their fellow students and in support of LGBT rights. So we continue to see those things happening more and more, especially what we're seeing in the larger society and politics. But yeah, we've never had it where our students were quiet, which we sort of enjoy.
Yeah. Now I know that, or at least I heard you mention white Christian nationalism and all that, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, how does the SSA promote activism and advocacy for secular values, including the separation of church and state, to stave off that white Christian nationalism?
Sure. And yeah, and as I sort of mentioned, the separation of church and state is obviously one of our main focuses and something that we is core to our mission and our programming. So through the national office, we do a variety of trainings and workshops, bringing in people to talk with the students, educate the students, train the students. Um, but a lot of what we see and the sort of the really hallmark local impact is really at the chapter level. And so when the students say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, can you like we have a coalition, we know what we want to do, we're looking for some funding, hey, we're not sure how to do this, we can you help us figure this out? um, you know if it's connecting them with people in their area that can support them or train them. So we had some students in Missouri who wanted to go and testify at their state capitol, and we connected them with Jones Advocacy in the state, who helped train the students. So when they went to testify at the state capitol, they were informed and their messages were impactful. So anywhere that we can provide resources, provide training, provide connections for them, we're going to do that. And so when I sort of mentioned when Roe was taken down by the Supreme Court, we had multiple student chapters who reached out saying that they wanted to participate in protests and marches. And so we're like, that's fantastic. What do you need from us? And we designed a few banners so that they could go and, just here's some already designed, ready to go. We'll send them off to you. If you want us to design something specific, let us know. So sent those all around the country. So anytime we can support what a chapter wants to do, what students want to do, we're always going to be there to do that. And the range of that is quite wide.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. So I guess you would say that you would consider white Christian nationalism to be a significant issue for secular students now, right?
I think it's a white Christian nationalism is a definitely concern for non-religious students, but I think for the impact that we're seeing on especially public schools, public students, any student with financial aid, any LGBT student, any student who can get pregnant, female students, female athletes, populations of color, students with disabilities. From what we're seeing from the goal and plan from Project 2025, and over half of that, about half of that's been implemented so far, that is going to affect so many people. So well, yes, non-religious students, the it's going to affect just students in general.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I'm just kind of curious, have y'all come across any like examples of harassment exclusion or any policy changes around secular or not or religious students that they've experienced due to this Christian nationalist influence?
I think just generally, we're very fortunate. Our students don't receive a lot of harassment, which is great. We don't want any student to. We There are some small examples where we've seen where religious student organization was trying to go after one of our chapters, and because of their relationship with other student organizations and even other religious student organizations, they were like, the campus was like, yeah, okay, you know, you're just picking on them. So fortunately, most of those things we are pretty easy for us to handle. If we do find an instance in a public university or a public school where an administrator, it just doesn't seem right, or like allowing other student organizations to be chartered or start, but not, the non-religious group, the secular group. We're fortunate we have, allies and the legal staff of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, who's super quick to help our students with that. So wonderful relationship there, and we appreciate everything that they do. Um, but I think in the specifically looking at sort of white Christian nationalism, what we're seeing now, right now, most of our chapters are in the religious category listing, and so I think they're being slightly ignored, which we're okay with. We don't want them to be harassed. But our students, I think, when we're seeing, the trans students, the rest of the LGBT community, women, communities of color, disabled students, students with disabilities, when we see them being targeted and attacked and on campuses, our students are standing up and helping. So, if there are states now where if you are the uh, Black Student Union or the Latino Student Alliance or the LGBT group, you can't get funding anymore. You can't reserve a room. And so our students are going, we can reserve you a room. So they're sort of, doing what they can to assist in those sorts of things so that the groups that are being attacked are able to access resources and those sorts of things on campus. So I love that our students are doing that. I love that they're seeing that coalition and that support. And I think there is a reality we could be next. And I can't imagine it's too far. If they keep going, it's always what's the next group that they're looking to attack or restrict or erase. I can't see that we won't be farther down that line. Fortunately, we haven't been, but I think there's so many people being impacted now, um, sort of by the religious, conservative, far right community, and it's really white Christian nationalism ideology embedded in our public schools, our society, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, you saying that reminded me of the anti-Christian bias task force that Trump put together, and I mean that's really just right now contained within like the federal government that they're trying to root out this anti-Christian bias. But I feel like it's not that far of a fetch to think about how that could translate to more of the I guess the private sector or like outside of the federal government to more public life, how that could apply. And so yeah, I don't think that the secular community in general isn't too far down that list of being targeted. um and there's been a rather, I guess, maybe uptick. Maybe I'm just noticing it a bit more, but of right wing like campus organizers. Like Charlie Kirk's with, I believe he runs Turning Point USA, right?
Yes.
Um, if you listen to him enough, if anybody does, you might think that Christian nationalism is like growing amongst the students of today, like college and high school students. It's rising in popularity according to like Charlie Kirk. Do you think that this is accurate, or are you seeing something different from like the student population here in America?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And so, one, I don't think we have enough. I don't think we truly have enough information yet to sort of to hone that out. In general, we continue to see that most young people lean more liberal and more progressive. So I don't think we're going to undo that trend. Um, but I do think, especially for young white men, we have seen where and there is research to show that they don't feel like they fit in. They don't feel like they have a community. They feel on the outskirts. One, that's not how we want anyone to feel. We want to be bringing people together. So I think it is important that we look at what that phenomena is and making sure that we're doing things to address it and to make people feel included and welcome and supported as with everyone else in our society. So I think that's part of it. Um, I will say for the conservative, especially religious conservative movements in youth and especially within higher education, and this Turning Point USA is a great example. But if you look at sort of almost all of the Newman Center, your sort of tried and true supporters, just religious communities in education, they were some of the first to come back after COVID. And in parts because that's a large part is because of just the vast amounts of money that they have. So, and Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA have millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, and they do a great job of promoting themselves. So when they have a student conference, it's like something we would do where, our students are fundraising so that they can, you know, so that they can carpool and drive to the conference or get an airline ticket and those sorts of things. Um, you know, Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, when he's like, "Oh, we had 1,000 people here and it was jam packed full," yeah, because their registration is $20, and in most cases, they will almost always pay for the transportation to fly them there, and fancy hotel that they can put them up with, and the other the big time conservative celebrities, quote unquote, religious leaders are aren't being paid. So the obscene amount of money that they have, and then the willingness of the conservative right wing movement to uh, put their time and energy and money into youth programming makes it them seem much, much, much larger than they
Sorry, my wife came in. I had to get rid of the headset.
are.
um, so I'm wondering what is and this is a little bit sort of a side topic here. What do you think is the best way for students, whether they're part of the SSA or not, to sort of combat these very right wing groups that are coming on to college campuses and other areas? What's the best thing that they can do? Like, I guess my question is, do you think that it's profitable to consistently push back against them, or do you think that maybe non-engagement is better?
I think we have to continue to push back. And so, one, I think it's when they're co-opting parents' rights and students' rights, and so which sounds great. We want parents and students to have rights on campuses and in education, especially in public education. But when they really mean that they want to privilege their religion over everyone else and to be able to discriminate against other students, non-religious students, LGBT students, students of color, students with disabilities, um, that's not okay. And part of it is making sure that we're sharing the correct information and we're pushing back on that. I think it's while we're doing that, and voucher programs, making sure we're sharing all that, and the complete and utter harm that they're going to be doing to public education. Um, At the same time, we have to look at what we can do to share positive messages, to make sure that we're visible, to make sure that we're changing our campuses and our communities through service, making them better, in building coalitions. So it's when our students are working with the LGBT students and the racial justice groups on campuses, those coalitions are more and more and more important. And so I don't think that just needs to happen on campuses. That needs to happen in cities and towns across the United States, and in states, and organizing to fight back what we're seeing, not just from religious groups, but from conservative politicians, and sort of their wishes, and what they want to do on our society. Unfortunately, even more and more with the judicial system, and the larger federal government also.
Yeah, I really hate that it's kind of come down to this very proactive fight against Christian nationalism, and I'm kind of curious. Do you see this rise in Christian nationalism? At least I had to give a speech this weekend, and they've kind of been playing this long game for like 45 years. Do you see the same thing in sort of this very student centered sort of aspect, like this long game of slowly working in this Christian nationalist sort of agenda into the schools?
We've definitely seen the long game in sort of the educational aspect, as well as other areas of our society. And I mean, the moral majority, in the 80s was, a bit of the start. And then I don't remember his first name, Ferris, who sort of got into uh, religious homeschooling, was really some of the basis for, even now, some of the architect and structure for the voucher programs across states, and even now the federal government pushing that. So this has been a very long game for them. And they put the time and sweat and energy and money into this, and that goes into education as well. So when they've looked at putting the judges in place, so that when they want to bring a case, you know Oklahoma, the first religious publicly funded school, they have most of their ducks in a row. If the Ten Commandments bills, the In God We Trust, all of those sorts of things. It's been a long game. They put those plans out years and years and years ago, saying they want to do this, and that's why I think there were many of us in the secular movement, and progressive movement just in general, when Project 2025 came out, we're like, no, they mean this. They're telling us what they're going to do. We can't ignore this. But you even have people today who are like, oh, I don't they were never going to do that. Like, they were, and they are. So we have to be diligent. We have to keep pushing back. We have to do our educational role, and we've got to build coalitions to move it in the direction that is more equitable and fair and compassionate for everyone in our society.
Totally agree with that. And I guess just maybe just your own opinion. Do you think that those very religious bills, like the Ten Commandment stuff, the religious charter schools, do you think that they're going to be successful this time, considering the current, state of our socio-political sort of environment? Do you think that they're actually going to be able to get those bills through?
I think you're finding, most of those are at the state level. So state level, yes, I think the number of those type of bills over the last 2 years has, increased exponentially. I think we'll continue to see that in this upcoming legislative cycle, where if they didn't get it passed, they're going to push it to get passed. We're also going to see bills where Texas and Florida are sort of infamous for being the test ground. Like, let's push this, the "Don't Say Gay" bill through, and then when Missouri or Oklahoma bring it up, they actually find where, like, the holes in it were, and make it worse. We're going to continue to see that. And there, I think, through that, when there are legal challenges, and American Atheists and Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, are working with the ACLU and other legal groups, and helping fight that. But there also have been in the process of appointing a judges at the state and federal system. And that, obviously, I think we all know what the makeup of the Supreme Court is currently, to where they're finding the path, like, oh, we need to bring it in this district because we'll get the favorable ruling that we want, that will bring it to the appellate court, that then we can bring it to the Supreme Court. So, and just to give a quick example, Betsy DeVos, when she was horrible woman, um, when she was the, I mean, she is, when she
Yeah.
was the Secretary of State under Trump, Trump 1.0, she put in regulations that would allow religious student organizations to discriminate against other students on their campuses. We didn't argue that point. The part we argued was, and what she changed was, and they were allowed to receive public funds in the form of student activity fees. So students are required to pay these funds, and but most campuses have an anti-discrimination policy where, like, if you're discriminating against other students, you can't get these. And I think in sort of a compassionate, pluralistic society, most of us agree with that. So she didn't. So with American Atheist and Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, we sued the Department of Education. So it took 4 years, but it got to a point in which one of the judges said, yes, they have the procedural right to do this. We were hoping it was going to get bumped out there. And so then we would have had to take it on the merit of, okay, can religious student organizations discriminate and get public funds? So at that point, we chose to withdraw the lawsuit because their intent was to bring this to the Supreme Court, obviously. And we did not want this Supreme Court to make that ruling and make established law worse than when we started. So I think organizationally, we have to be smart, progressively, we have to be smart, and bringing cases that are going to help change things for the positive, not make things worse. Because they are definitely the other side, the conservative, religious, white Christian nationalist side is definitely looking to see how they can change federal and state law to privilege their religion over everyone else. And I don't remember where it just came from, but I think it was announced this morning that there was a court ruling that is now allowing churches to be able to endorse politicians from the pulpit. I think
Wow.
brand new this morning.
Yeah, sorry. My wife was saying that she just sent me the news article today about that, which I think is totally ridiculous. I mean, they're basically just ignoring the Johnson Amendment, right?
Oh, trampling over the Johnson Amendment. Yeah.
Trampling. Yeah, that's a better way. Now, I'm kind of curious, and this may be a pointless question to ask, but do you find that a lot of the bills that states, like local governments, are passing are primarily being pushed through so that they can be challenged up to the Supreme Court because of the composition of the Supreme Court right now?
Well, I think they're hopeful to start with. I think they're hopeful in where you have a majority, and often cases Republican. That's where we're seeing it. So we're trying to be factual and not political in there.
Yeah.
501c3. So, but where you see it happening is primarily religious conservative states. And so I think their hope is, oh, let's put this through. We're all going to vote for it. So, most chances they think it'll go into effect. If there is a lawsuit, they typically know that that they hope to find a supportive judge, or they know that there are enough large conservative right-wing Christian nationalist legal organizations that will take up those cases in a heartbeat and are extremely well funded to do the appeal and, if necessary, take it to the Supreme Court. So, and obviously, the Supreme Court now is just a mockery of a white Christian nationalist, stamp on, just horrible, dumb laws.
Yeah, no, I totally agree about that. And you may have already answered this question, and just tell me to move on if you have. But I'm kind of curious what actions the SSA is taking to protect secular students and promote inclusive secular education in the face of this Christian nationalist agenda that we see moving through the government.
Sure. I think from one, there's the national office and then sort of the local level. And so we continue to be in coalition with lots of organizations. And I sort of have mentioned a few within the secular movement, but also outside the movement. So other progressive organizations who are concerned about what's happening or are doing things. So continuing to build those relationships are crucial so that we are sort of in the room, have our voice in spaces. So we when voter access for college students is being challenged, we're part of a coalition that helps fight that. So we want young people to have their voice and to be involved and be a part of the democratic process. And that's trying to be eroded. And so that's not necessarily a church and state sort of thing, but it is for our one of the hallmarks of our secular society and highly important to young people. So we're going to try to continue to be in those rooms, as things are happening, and sort of the wider scope of that. We do education. We have educational webinars. We do trainings. We promote a lot of the action alerts that some of our sister organizations do as well. So things on the larger scale. We have had op-eds in Newsweek and the Oklahoman and in Texas. So in highlighting the issues and trying to educate individuals on what's happening and the impact that's often going to have on young people, especially students. And for our students, we're hopefully providing that training, getting them in positions that raising their awareness, providing them with resources where they can make impacts on their campuses. And so everything that we can do to help them with that, we're going to do. We also want to help it so that they can educate their fellow students on what's happening, and educate their campuses. So we had a high school student, Luke in Colorado, who happens to be a fantastic golfer and was in the Colorado State Golf Championship, and it happened to be hosted at one time by who was hosting sort of changes, and it was hosted by a religious school who all of a sudden stopped everything and was like, please, bow your head and pray. And Luke was like, yeah, this isn't right. And so we actually worked with him and his family and wrote an op-ed for the state. And we're able to help sort of elevate that issue and that voice, and then put the spin on it. The sort of church state separation issue, but also the freedom of religion issue. And I think that one of the things that we often overlook in conversations that we have religious communities is, you know, whose religion is being privileged here. And so if it's even if it's not your brand of Christianity, if you are a different branch of Christianity, but now you want to be pushed into one, you don't want that. That infringes on your rights. And also, you don't want the government involved in your religion. We don't want the government involved in your religion. So it's sort of like, if the more some groups are pushing for the government to get involved or be supportive of religion, there's also the other side that we don't want religion involved with the government. We don't want government involved with religion. Both of those things work in tandem with each other.
Yeah, I think that it's rather telling how normalized like certain, I guess, denominations or certain ideas of Christianity are just accepted without thought. Because like if you take I don't want to say one of the more fringe denominations, but one of the lesser adhered to denominations like Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses, if you had somebody come over the loudspeaker and say, "All right, let's all pray to Jehovah now," or let's all think about Moroni, speaking to Joseph Smith, like then people would have a problem with it, because those are I guess more fringe Christian beliefs, and they don't ever think about that whenever it's just a very generic bow your heads and let's pray you know
Yeah, I think until it happens more is when you will see more of the mainstream religious communities fighting back against that, which they've shown us they'll do. There's a adoption case where a Christian adoption agency wouldn't let a Jewish couple adopt a child. And there was um, a politician. It's a current meme going around right now, where it's a politician holding his hand on the Quran as he's sworn into state office in Texas. So it's to create hysteria, and now it's being pushed. Look what's happening right now. Although that happened, I think it was in 2018. So, it if not, it was several years ago, but now they're just bringing it up all over again to help create the hysteria and those sorts of things. So, yes, it's about a specific brand of Christianity that needs to be privileged over every other religion, even other Christian religions.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious, how does the SSA lend support to students who encounter religious, like coercion or discrimination in schools influenced by these Christian nationalist policies?
So the first thing we do is our campus organizing staff works with those students. So one, like, let's identify the issue. What can we do about it? If the student is able to and wants to do something at the local level, we will help them. We'll help them talk with administrators, write an op-ed in the newspaper. This upcoming fall, we will actually be writing sort of draft op-eds on current topics that are happening that our students can take to the local level and publish in their local newspaper or their campus newspaper. So increasing, be able to personalize it, hone it in, put their personal opinions in there, but really getting their voices out there more. If that doesn't work, and we have sued. Yeah, we've been involved in lawsuits before. We will continue to do those sorts of things as appropriate and as they make sense to do, and where we're benefiting the benefiting the law, not making things worse. We also, work with our secular partners who have lawyers and lobbyists, and they truly appreciate the youth activism components, and whether it's American Atheist or Americans United or FFRF, have been super supportive of our organization as well as our students. So we continue to be that bridge, and being in that coordination. When Texas, when the president of West Texas University banned drag and cited all of his religious beliefs and why he was canceling a student drag show on campus that was a fundraiser against suicide prevention. Um, so we supported those students. We actually did. Andrew Seidel and I went down and did a program on campus. So had highest level of security alert. It was a little fun. But yeah, we're going to make sure that we continue to those things over and over and over again to make sure that we're supporting our not only our chapters but just students in general. So we will continue to do that, and where we need to, if it's students in Florida and it's an LGBT issue, yeah, we're going to contact Nadine Smith at Equality Florida and go, hey, we've got this going on. Can you provide some help? And Nadine's gonna be like, yes, of course we will. So those larger alliances and coalitions that we have with other groups are just going to be more and more and more important. And then every 2-ish years, we work with several different youth voting organizations to increase awareness, increase voter registration, and get out the vote. So we try to do that in a variety of areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that I didn't contact y'all about this, but when my son was much younger in elementary school, I actually did request help from the FFRF
Hmm.
because they had like a grandparents' day, and before they went and they had lunch with the grandparents, they had everybody, including the children, bow down and pray to God.
Hmm.
And so I was able to contact the FFRF, and they sent a letter that sent, it was like anonymous parent, complained about this, and
Yep.
they were able to resolve it, just with a simple letter saying, hey, don't do this again. And so I guess I was just wanting to bring that up. Like these are like real things that people can get help with. You shouldn't have to just sort of grit your teeth and accept that this is what's going to happen. You can fight back in these kinds of ways using organizations like the SSA, as well as all those other organizations that you were mentioning, the FFRF, and all of them. So I definitely support, like, people contacting you, and if they have children that are facing these kinds of things, or if you yourself are a student and you're facing these kind of things. These are very real services and real situations that can be stopped or prevented. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm assuming
Definitely.
that on the SSA website, y'all have like a contact form, right?
We do. So yeah, if a student, we have one, if the students want to contact us, it's very easy to do. If students want to find where our chapters are, there's a map they can look directly email those chapters and find out information. If they want to start a chapter, there's a start a chapter form. Our staff reaches out immediately, and again, it's lots of free supports and resources and materials and supplies and publicity that comes that student's way, and doing that as well.
Cool. Awesome. Kevin, I wish that I could say that I was going to be coming to the SSA conference, but we're kind of booked up for conferences that we're going to
Next year,
this
there's
year.
always
But
next year.
yeah, yeah, next year. And this past Sunday was my first speaking gig, so just, like, wink wink,
There you
in
go.
case you need anybody, you need to anybody to fill in there, for anything. But I do hope that, I can continue to help y'all, spread the word about the SSA, and help y'all out in whatever way I can. Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you really kind of had in your mind that you wanted to cover, as far as like the SSA goes, and y'all's, everything you're doing over there?
Oh, I appreciate the conversation we've had today, and I think good broad selection of topics we hit. I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't mention one for any young people out there, or if people know young people who would be interested. It's very if you go to our website, secular students with an S, students.org. Very easy to find out information, what's coming up, our programs, our webinars, our trainings. That's all on our website. And of course, if they want to help find a chapter or start a chapter, that's very easy to do. And they go, oh, well, I'm not a student and I don't know any young people. For all those people like you who are like, oh, I wish I had this when I was in school. It's very easy to support the organization. So making a donation, putting us in your will, easy things to do, and that money goes directly to student chapters and supporting non-religious students. And so that's how we fund this organization. It's all personal and individual donations that make our organization happen and allow us to support the students like we do.
Awesome. Well, again, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and, sort of introducing the SSA to, my audience here. Not that, y'all really need any kind of introduction, in this particular space, but, me, like, thinking about, the SSA. I was like, well, what do they do? What kind of services do they provide? And I figured that there was some people that probably were in the same boat. Like, hearing it, you can make assumptions, but, like, it's nice to have somebody come on and explain all of the different services that y'all provide. So thank you so much for doing that.
My
If
pleasure.
everybody will, yeah, if everybody will, I am going to be putting the links, to the secularstudents.org, down in the description. So definitely check them out. If you yourself are a student, consider either joining your local chapter or potentially starting your own. Just give that some thought. But the links will be in the description below. So definitely check that out. And I guess, that's going to be it for us. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.